and then we can start. Okay. Just want to double check everybody can see that okay. Has it come up for everybody?
Yeah, I can see.
Brilliant. Perfect. Okay.
Okay, so this is just an overview of what we're going to cover today so that you've got a bit of an idea of where we're going to go. We're going to give you an overview of all the services that we provide in the employment services within Scope, because there's more than one. I'm going to give you a bit of a closer look at what Support to Work specifically does, and that's the service that Sam and I do work on. Sam is going to then go into the in-work support. We're going to give you the opportunity of asking us any questions, and then Richard's going to tell you a bit about his employment journey, and then we'll have some final questions at the end of that. We are both, Sam and I, going to give you a bit of a view of what our journey with employment has been, so hopefully you'll find some kind of tips from the things that we've been through that we can share with you. Lovely.
So just as a quick overview, so at Scope we provide practical information and emotional support when it's needed most and campaign for a fairer society. There are 16 million disabled people in the UK, and that's 1 in 4 of us that might have a disability. Disabled people are twice as likely to be unemployed. Scope provides a number of employment programs to support disabled people looking for work and to work towards reducing that disability employment gap.
Lovely. So to just think about our employment services at Scope, as I said, Sam and I do both work on our Support to Work, which is a national employment service. I won't go too much into detail now because we're going to go back to it in a minute, but it's a 12-week digital course. Support to Work Extra, which we'll be launching next month, it's a fuller version of the Support to Work. So it's got longer, so it's got 5 months of support, and it is there to help people begin that journey of looking for work. It's there to help with maybe goals that are not just paid employment. It might be looking for a goal of volunteering or training, education, as well as paid work being like a goal for that as well. It's about building your skills and having that bit of a longer view to make sure you can get to that end goal that you want to be at. The service is for people in England. It's for the working age, so 16 plus, obviously up until retirement age. They will be phone appointments, Teams appointments, and if you live in London, Leeds or Manchester, there is the option for some face-to-face, so a mixture of all the three if you're in those 3 areas. It is to help people at various stages, so it might be that you're just starting off looking for jobs. It might be that you need to retrain because maybe as your condition develops, not able to do as much as you could do. It's there for that extra support, but great employment advisors that are there to support you through it as well. The other service that we offer is Working on Wellbeing, which is our Welsh version of the employment support. So basically this will do everything that Support to Work Extra does, but they split this into 2 separate areas. The starting line and the kickstart. So the starting lines for somebody that's starting their journey, younger ones, maybe leaving school or college and looking at how do I get into work and what do I do? And the kickstart is about kind of that reboot, getting back into employment after a disability, an illness, maybe something that's limited you. But again, get an advisor who will be your personal advisor, be there for a period of time to help identify what skills you need and what help you need. So that's they're all tailored to what you actually specifically need. And the last thing that we do is the careers pathway. So this is for our young people. So they go into schools, they do careers advice, help them to think about where they might get training, what the right pathway for a specific career they want to go into, if they wanted to go into business, or if they wanted to go into customer service, whatever they want to do. Then the careers pathway is a service that we offer to help guide young people with disabilities into that right career path, to get them on the right track and knowing what's there for support as well. Okay, next slide.
So our services continue. So that was mainly our employment services, but there's other services that Scope offers as well. So we have a workplace disability inclusion program. And what that means is we actually have some people that actually go into businesses and they do Get Inclusive, which is a program that helps employers to make adjustments and actually be aware that actually different people with different disabilities might need different things that help them in their job role. And that's really brilliant. And actually, we've had that I know of, some of the sessions have been delivered to like big companies like Disney and Prada and some of those big names, like different fashion labels and things like that. And that's something that they put together, like a package of support depending on what people need that support in. So that's really great. So yeah, so that's to support with recruitment to make sure it's done fairly, and retention of staff to make sure people get the right support, and obviously trying to make sure that people who have a disability actually get the opportunity for career progression within different companies as well. So that's really good. And then another part of our support to work service is we have a jobs board. So for our customers who sign up to any of the employment programs that Jenny's just mentioned, actually get to access our jobs board, which is just for our customers. And that has one of our colleagues works alongside lots of different businesses, organizations, and actually talks to them about being inclusive as well, and actually looking at getting disability friendly employers who want to actively recruit people onto our jobs board. And it's growing and growing over time. I think we recently did an annual review as part of our team. I think there was like over 3,000 different jobs on there and about over like 300 different organizations. And it's growing and growing over the time with all the connections that we're making, which is brilliant. And then alongside the support that we offer as employment advisors, we also have Learn at Scope, which is our e-learning platform, which was launched this year. So if me and Jenny, for example, are supporting someone on a particular topic, which we'll talk a bit more about what we do a little bit later on. But just as an example, so say we're doing a CV with somebody, there's actually a module on there that can also link with that with extra resources and step-by-step kind of tasks to help make that process a bit easier. So there's lots of extra things that can support someone's employment journey. So that's really exciting.
Okay, so as a whole, our employment services since April 2022 have seen a 36% of disabled people who have used our service have gone into paid work within 6 months. And 74% of disabled people who have used the service have gone into paid work, training, education or volunteering within 6 months. And the customers who have used our in-work support are more likely to still be in work after 6 months than those that chose not to. So that's just underpinning the valuable service that we offer with Scope, and the help that it's giving people the opportunity to get out into work and to have the support that you need. So I'm going to now just go over the support to work service. So that, as I said before, this is the service that Sam and I work on. So support to work is a 12-week digital program of support. You sign up by going onto our website, which is scope.org.uk, and finding the services tab, and then picking employment, and there is a link there for support to work. You put your details in, and once you've done that, within a couple of days, one of our coordinators will ring you back. They will check your details are all right. They will just go through some basic questions with you to make sure that the service is right for you and to get a bit of background from you. And then they will set an initial appointment up with you with one of us, so one of your employment advisors, and that person will then be your advisor for the 12 weeks. So we can build that rapport, can get to know each other and know where you need the help and where we can kind of put the support in for you. It is 12 weeks of digital support. We try to see each other, our customers weekly if we can, fortnightly as an absolute must. And we look at an individual tailored approach for each person. So as Sam said before, we will look at your CV, we'll look at covering letters, we'll look at application forms with you. We're here to support you and to help build your skills of doing that. It's not a service that does it for you, because we're here to empower you to build your skills so that once the 12 weeks is finished, you are able to carry on doing that for yourself. And you have gained those skills from us. We will offer you advice. We have one of our advisors is particularly trained on benefits, so making sure that you're looking at what is the right amount of hours for you to make sure your benefits are balanced, to see what's the right thing for you and what type of we'll help you consider how much would be enough work for you and how much is maybe too much. So it's very individual, looking at what is the right job and helping you build that knowledge of where to look for the jobs, and how to sell yourself and use your skills you've got. So we'll help you identify skills that you might have gained from one role that you can move over into another, which we call transferable skills. And we will also just kind of pick out the things that you want support with. So it might be that you feel like you can do a CV really well and that you can get an application in and get to the interview stage, but it's at the interview that you might want some help, and we can do that kind of mock interview, helping you build up your skills around how to come across at the interview, build your confidence up, and then practicing that in a regular basis so that when the job comes along, the interview's there, it's something that doesn't daunt you. We can get you ready for that. We also spend quite a bit of time talking about making sure you understand what are the right adjustments for yourself. So I don't really like the word reasonable adjustments, because I think it kind of implies we're not being that reasonable that we need. I like to think of it as adjustments. Everybody needs a bit of an adjustment sometimes. And there are things that need adjusting for us when we go into work with a disability, that are just little things sometimes that will just really help. It might be that in order to take your medication or get your carer to support you in the morning, you need to start a little bit later, an hour later than maybe everybody else. That's a reasonable adjustment. Once you've had your medications kicked in or you've had the support you need, you can get working, and that hour start later is very reasonable. So it's a nice adjustment. There's all sorts of different things that we help people kind of identify and that might be software, it might be that they need a support worker. I've had a situation, not while I was with Scope, but while I was working with a different company, where I had a lady who was a nurse and she had a very severe stroke, so she needed access to work to help her. She was a school nurse, so she wasn't doing physical nursing, but she needed help for somebody to make sure that doors were opened for her when she went in and out of school visiting, that she could get a coat on and off, and that she could get somebody to take some notes for her, so that when she got back to her office, she could use software to type up her notes and do her all the things she needed to do as a school nurse, order the vaccines and things like that. And Access to Work had said yes, that they would provide that kind of support. However, we did have a little bit of a problem that support was being provided by somebody who was a carer, and some of the stuff was admin. So it was about knowing what support we can find, what organisations are local for that individual, and reaching out to the right kind of agency so that we got the right support. She got the PA she needed, and she got back into her paid work and kept her job. So there's things like that that we can help you look at adjustments with. It's about us helping you build your confidence, really, and just really enjoy seeing people realise that their disability actually gives them something extra. And I think that's where I want to tell you a little bit about my story. So I have spina bifida and I'm a below knee amputee. So I'm an old lady now, I'm 50. So when I started work way back as a 17-year-old, I had a lot of time off school, not being well, didn't get very good qualifications because of that, and really was struggling to find an employer that would take me on, because they just looked at sick record and were like, no, we want you. So then I was fortunate enough at the time that my local council did a scheme that was for people with disabilities that helped pay the wage, and that wage helped me get into the civil service, where I spent 2 or 3 years on that provision, and I was able to gain the skills and the work history to be able to apply for that role permanently as a fully fledged member of staff. I understand that gave me a really unique way in, and they don't do many schemes like that now. So that's why it's really good to have the support to work here, where we can help people get that start. And the jobs board that Sam said about earlier on, that is brilliant, because those employers have all been reached out to, and they've all said, yes, we'll make adjustments for people that come into to apply for us that you've sent our way. So loads of jobs on there that are from big companies, Channel 4, Virgin Media, there's banks, there's all sorts of different organisations on there that give people with disabilities that chance to get into work. So I think just wanted to share that my journey hadn't been just that straightforward, but I had that help to get in. Lovely. I think that is my bit, Sam.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thanks, Jenny. So I'm going to do a quick overview of work support and what I do in my role, and then I'm going to talk a bit about my employment journey as well. So in work support, what's so great, and it's kind of now being offered to all of the employment services because it wasn't previously, it's just for our customers, which is, it's hard because I would love it to be across the whole of the UK for everybody, but we just don't have capacity for that. But we are offering it to all of the different employment programs if they do need in-work support. then that's something that their advisor will talk to them about. Like if they might know, like Jenny said, about some adjustments they might already know about, or it might be that actually they're not quite sure what adjustments or support they might need till they start in their role. So that's where I would come in. So I'm an in-work support advisor, and I've been doing this role for 2.5 years now. And as part of that support, we offer 6 months support to make sure somebody hopefully will reach their probation period and actually get some of those barriers out of the way and actually get that right support. So, you know, it's kind of looking at, like Jenny said, talking about adjustments. So if someone doesn't know what adjustments they require, something that I quite like to do is to actually help someone to think about, well, what are the most challenging times in your day? Is it, like Jenny said, mornings are more challenging because of medical needs? Is it that actually there's particular things, aspects of a role that would be more challenging, like admin kind of what, like tasks, things like that can be more challenging for some people. It could be that actually the environment's really loud and noisy, and actually that's really difficult for some people. There's quite it's very individualized, like what our other programs are like, because everybody's journey is different, but everybody's role will be slightly different. Some of the kind of customers I've had have had really amazing jobs. Like I've supported an opera singer, I've supported somebody who's working for a 3D printing company, somebody who was a shepherdess. It's very like any job like that someone gets, I'll be supporting them. So obviously it's voluntary if someone wants in-work support. It's not compulsory, but obviously we've had a lot of people maintain and actually keep their jobs by getting the support. And it has made me really sad sometimes when I hear that someone didn't want in-work support, and because we do like a check-in at 3 months if someone has decided they don't really want support, just to make sure they still are doing okay and that they haven't had any issues. But sometimes when I do that check-in, people have told me, oh, I only lasted a week because I couldn't cope with it. And it's kind of really sad, because that's why we're here, to actually help people when they're finding problems, to look at strategies and actually try and make a way forward. So that could be supporting someone to have a conversation with their manager. So unfortunately, our service doesn't speak to employers on behalf of anybody, but we do work alongside advocacy services and obviously legal services if needed, to try and look at any disputes. But I'm hoping that many people won't need to have those services, but obviously it is required sometimes because of some negative experiences people have in work. So that's where I'm going to start talking about my journey. So I think it's really hard because some people are born with disabilities and some people obviously acquire them later on in different ways. And for myself, I didn't even know I had a disability till I was an adult. And actually, that has been really difficult for me to process. So when I was 27, I was studying for my master's at university. So I went through all of school, all of college, and my undergrad degree without even knowing. And nobody picked up anything. And my teachers at school said to me, you'll never make it to university. You'll never be able to do all these things. So I left school and went to college because I was like, you don't believe in me. And I worked so hard at school, but I just wasn't getting the grades everybody else was. So when I did my master's, I found I had dyslexia. And actually, it kind of was quite hard finding out so late, and why I was struggling so much. I just presumed some people struggle more than others. And actually, I did really struggle, but didn't really make a scene about it because I just thought that's just one of those things. And then with my different job roles I've had, I've never been offered support or even any conversations about adjustments. And so from the different roles I've had, I'm really passionate about making sure people get them, because I didn't know what was on offer and what I could have to help me. So moving through some different job roles, I worked as a youth worker with young people who didn't go to school in a pupil referral unit. And actually, a lot of the students there had additional needs and it wasn't picked up from school. And that's where a lot of the behaviours came from. And I kind of just wanted to kind of develop my skills more to support students with additional needs. So I started working in a school as a kind of pupil premium. I don't know if anyone's come across that term, but for students that are underprivileged, I guess, and they don't have as many opportunities, maybe come from lower incomes and things like that. So my role, and alongside the students, did speech and language therapy and physio with some of the students to help build up their skills, help them to gain the confidence and actually improve their education and things like that. So I was going into different classes and working with students across the whole of the school to try and support them in different ways. And from that position, I worked for the SENDIAS service, which is the Special Educational Needs Information Advice Support Service, which is a bit of a long acronym. And that in that role, I supported disabled young people and children and their families to get the right support in school to make sure their educational healthcare plans actually had the right things in from a legal point of view, but also making sure adjustments were made at school so they could actually get the right support and get an education. Moving into Scope in a very similar role with young people and adults to help make sure they get that support in like their employment kind of environment, whatever that looks like. So that's a little tiny bit about myself. And I just wanted to it's okay to be worried about talking to employers and things about how you're feeling, because when I spoke to my manager, I was quite scared about doing it because of negative experiences in other jobs. And that's something that I like to offer to the customers that I'm supporting, is it's a safe environment, it's confidential what's shared. And if there are issues at work, then we work through them together. And like Jenny said, I will signpost to other services. We deal with a lot of wellbeing support and signposting people to those services to get the right support if someone has anxiety or they're stressed at work. And there are mental health services that we work closely with that have been really helpful to my customers, and they've really benefited from that support. So it's not necessarily therapy that they're accessing, but it's actually like positive wellbeing support from Access to Work, which is really important and really good what they do. So I'm sorry if I've talked too long, and I hope it's made sense, but we will have time for questions in a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to the next slide. So we've actually got some quotes now from some of the customers that have used some of the services that we've just spoken about. So I'm going to read the first one out, and then Jenny's going to read the next one, and then we'll sort of have a bit of time for questions at the end. Okay. So this is a customer that's used one of the services. So my advisor was so helpful, knowledgeable, and so informative. She really went above and beyond when helping me and was really supportive and flexible. She was so empathetic and friendly. She didn't make me feel pressured in any way. She really understood what I was unable to, when I was unable to make an appointment. I would say she really is a huge asset to Scope. She really gave such a brilliant impression of Scope. So that's about one of the advisors. I don't know which one that was for, but it's so lovely to hear that feedback that customers are finding our service is flexible, works around people's needs. And if someone does miss an appointment, it isn't the end of the world, because we will just rearrange for another time. Things come up, people are unwell, all different things. So yeah, we're very flexible.
Thanks, Sam. So the next one is, my advisor made me feel like a human and not a number. They were very easy to talk to and explained everything that would happen in terms I could easily understand. Again, we don't know who it was for. We ask for feedback all the time from our customers, and I'm just really glad we get feedback like this, because we are here, like Sam says, to support and just go through that journey with you. As you can see from the stats earlier on, they're not necessarily 100% of people that join our service get into employment straight away, but we're hoping to build your skills and kind of celebrate your successes through the programme.
Great. And then the last one. So I joined thinking I would probably never work again. I've been bullied in work before. The support I've received has been amazing. I feel confident in my ability to find a good job. It's been so helpful knowing that my advisor is there to support me. I can't thank them enough. And obviously everybody's journeys are different, and it's sad to hear stories where people have felt like that. But I've had some amazing stories from some of the people I've supported where they also believed they would never find a job, would never be able to work since finding out about the disability. And actually, you know, like Jenny said, we're building those skills. So even if someone doesn't find work, we still will check in a couple of months after someone finishes with our programs just to see where people are at and if they need anything else. And actually by that point, because they've been building on those skills that we've been teaching and supporting with, actually quite a lot of them have found work by that point. So that's really exciting. And yeah, so it's building sort of skills for the future if someone doesn't get into work straight away. But obviously, my dream would be that everyone would find work, but it's just the process, and everybody needs to focus on slightly different things, and sometimes it takes people slightly longer to do some of those things, which, you know, is totally fine, and that's what we're here for. So yeah, so now we're going to have a bit of time for questions about our services and things like that. So I'll stop screen sharing for a moment.
All right.
And something to the screen and I can't get the main screen up, so apologies. But yeah, while I'm messing about trying to get off screen share, I will
Press the button that says stop share.
it's not a full screen. I can only see me and Jenny. It's gone a bit crazy.
Jenny, you're on mute.
You got a little square of it at the top right hand corner, Sam.
I don't have anything. My Zoom has just gone wrong. So
well, we'll take the focus off Sam, and
yeah, thank you.
and we'll wait for her to do that, and we'll ask if anybody has any questions. I will whiz through. So Tony, you've just raised your hand. Let me see if I can add a spotlight to Tony for you. There we go. The floor is yours, Tony.
I think it's one of the things that's really struck me in the last 2 sessions that we've had is how important your line manager is to the success of how well you're doing your job. And one of the things that I'm very aware of when in work is that not only have we got to try and establish a good relationship with your line manager, you've also got to establish a network within the company, because if you do have issues with your line manager, then you are very much more reliant on having a network, and that is quite a challenge going into work and just coping with the new situation. Establishing that really important relationship, and then on top of that, you've got to start getting to know people who will be actually or benefit to you. And that is really very challenging. And wondering how you felt about that and how you supported that.
Sure.
Can
Do you want to go,
say?
Jenny?
Yeah, please. Yeah, absolutely spot on, Tony. I think that there is so much weight on when we join an organisation and we build a relationship with a line manager, that vulnerability is there, that if that line manager goes or they change or you get promoted, and that's you've got to start again. So we do promote the use of a disability passport. So that is a document that you take with you that lists all your adjustments and maybe your communication style, or what lighting you want in the rooms, and just your everything that you'd need as an adjustment. And it's on your personnel record. It goes with you to job to job, from role to role, so that you've got that as a base line for whichever that manager will hand it over with your personnel records and that kind of thing.
Indeed, but if you get into a job and you are starting to have problems with your line manager, then the passport doesn't really help with that. But you've still got the problem of we're trying to get a relationship with your line manager, and if you don't have the network to support you with that, it is a really challenging situation to go.
So I think what would be really helpful is kind of trying to organise a meeting to discuss the areas that you're finding more challenging, and if needed, that's where I would suggest, maybe if you don't feel comfortable doing that on your own, that you have like an advocate with you. And actually sometimes people don't want that. They want to be able to talk themselves without needing that support, but that is something that's available, because if you feel your manager's not listening to you, they can put forward your kind of concerns. And then there's also a service called ACAS, and they can actually mediate meetings and actually try and find and negotiate a way forward if there are challenges in the workplace. That's where they would come in.
I've been working for a long time. Although myself, I enjoy it at the moment. I've been on long-term sick leave for about 50 years now. But I'm aware of that because I was involved in our staff council. And when there was redundancies involved, ICAS was very involved in that. It's interesting to realize that ICAS can be very useful in managing the individual relationship, which I didn't realize that it's useful to know.
So I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to sort of take the question wider. If you are at work and you finding that you're having problems with your line manager, or and it's beyond access requirements, so that the communication passport, it's about attitude, or it's about having this wider discussions, is it something that Scope could offer in terms of advice and support in how you approach that situation, or would you be suggesting going to ACAS or a different organisation?
So I think if it came down to kind of discrimination, there are wider organisations called EASS, which is the Equality Advisory Service, and they get involved if there is discrimination in the workplace, hoping that people don't have to use them, but actually that's what they're there for, to discuss discrimination cases. Unfortunately, myself, I wouldn't get involved to be able to support somebody, but I would be chatting through the services available that are, because obviously I want to make sure someone's got that support. I've had some of my customers who've had to go through tribunals, which is obviously quite challenging for people. But I think if there's issues there and you feel like you want to address them, it could also be that you do a grievance as well. But I always encourage conversations to try and resolve things before it needs to go down that route, because I think if it can be addressed and things can be resolved, then hopefully it would never need to get to that stage. But that's where ACAS comes in. They would do mediation and things like that to try and resolve those issues before it became a massive issue. I hope, does that answer that question?
Yeah, that's very interesting. Thank you for that.
No problem. I
Brilliant.
also wanted to
Sorry,
pick
could
up
I-
as well. Oh, sorry.
So I just wanted to add, if you are in that situation, a good tip that I was taught many, many years ago when I was in a union and a shop steward was always communicate over email. So you've got a trail then
Yeah,
of what
brilliant.
you've said
Yeah.
and what they have
Yeah.
said back to you. So when you do get ACAS involved, you can show the entire conversation. There's no he said, or she said, she said. It's all officially through the channels of communication.
Brilliant. Yeah,
Thank
and I
you.
do encourage that a lot, because
Yeah,
I think it's
definitely.
really important, because otherwise you've got nothing to go back on. But yeah, no, that's really good, Richard. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tony, for your question. I think Dean had his hand up, so I'm going to Dean to the spotlight. There we go.
Oh, thank you. What a pleasure for everyone to have me in the spotlight. No, I just wanted to sort of ask a question and be quite honest here. I used to work for DWP. I was there for nearly 20 years. But since 2011, I've been in the support group of employment and support. Now, it took me nearly 2 years to get into the support group. It just happened, like that way. And the thing is, you can voluntarily go into the work-related group, but you can't, if it doesn't work out, you can't go back into the support group.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the service that Scopers offers, which is brilliant, but for me in the support group now, if I go into join your work, if I join the Scope Employment Support Services, and I'm come out of the support thing again. Also, as well, I wouldn't get it'd just be like I'd lose the current support, the support actual allowance as well. If I came out of him, if we came out of the support group. So what I'm trying to say is, and I'm trying to make other people aware, it's not about me not working, but it's about me losing what I've got, which took me a long time to get. I didn't intend to get it. I was looking for work as well when I came out of the civil service, but it just didn't happen, and for whatever reason. And I was going through different. I took voluntary redundancy from the civil service because of the way that the job was going to go. There was 5 of us that did that, it wasn't just me. But it's just, but I just want to know, what you thought about what I said. Sorry, I rambled on a bit. Sorry.
Dean, I nice to see you, by the way.
Nice to see you, Jenny, after all this time.
No, Dean and I went to school together and did work in the civil service together as well. So know each other from quite a way back. Yeah, so I would say absolutely hold on to your hard-held, hard-fought for benefits. If it's right for you, think about permitted work.
Yeah.
So if you keep it under 16 hours and under that threshold of the minimum wage times, say, 15 hours,
Yeah.
that might be something that is suitable. But work has to be the right thing for you. And if going into that means that it will
Yeah.
upset all of that, then this is about choice. You know,
Yeah.
we're at Scope, we're here to support the person. We're not here to say you have to stick to this. We're not the job centre. We're not here to do that. We're here to say, right, what's best for you. And if you decide that actually I'm quite okay to do a few hours voluntary to keep me, you know, and carry on with the benefits you want, that's what choice is about. So just what's right for you, really. And I do think about the permitted work.
Yeah.
Can I just sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, I just wanted to again to expand that further, because I think it came up last week, this kind of idea of voluntary work and the way some people feel that they're pushed into voluntary work as a stepping stone into work. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that. I guess it works for some and not for others, but I just wondered what your experience was.
Sure. And what I was going to say is actually the jobs on our jobs board, we have links to all of the recruitment services through our colleague. And if there are jobs on there that people really would like to consider, and it might say something like full time or something like that, then actually we can put questions forwards to the employers and actually ask, would you consider someone working part-time hours? Would you consider someone working a couple of days? And they might say no, but actually we've had a lot of our customers who have managed to get roles through the jobs board where the employers have been more flexible because we've been able to put those questions forwards maybe before someone applies for a job. And actually, you know, I think there are lots of different kind of roles on there. I mean, there's even, I know that someone would need to get some advice around this, but there are some freelance roles where people can choose how many hours they do on our jobs board as well. So that is something that maybe could be helpful if someone signed up to one of our services. We would look at different opportunities with somebody depending on how many hours they want to work. And that could be not necessarily because of benefits, actually for health reasons as well, that someone can't work full time. So that might, hopefully that's, I don't know if I've necessarily answered the question, but just thought it was really helpful to just cover that.
Yeah, it's just different things, isn't there? You know, there's just different options available. I think that's what I've got out of your answer. Thank you very much for that.
Brilliant. I'm gonna go to Courtney because she's got her hand up, and then perhaps we can hand back to Richard and then we'll take some more questions after that. But I'll just add Courtney to the mix. There we go, Courtney.
Hey, I'm just wondering, what is the next step for people who think are in work support that they'll need support after that gets done? Because for me, my situation is up and down because I had a support worker. They left without any warning. So I've now got one that I don't know what else to do, and I can't find a permanent support worker.
And do you want to, or jump me?
So can I just clarify, Courtney? So is this a support worker to help you with just daily tasks, or is this someone to help you get into work, just so I've got more clarity?
To help me in work, though, like a personal assistant to help me do my job.
Sure. So yeah, so that's something that you can apply through Access to Work for.
I got one. We got the funding for it, but we don't have a permanent one.
Sure.
That's the
Okay.
problem. We're struggling to find one to cover when the people who are doing it at the moment can't do it, like holidays and stuff like
Sure.
that.
Okay. No. So yeah, so that you probably need to do a change of circumstances with access to work, and actually get them to increase maybe the money that you've got to pay for your support worker to try and get someone else, because obviously it's not helpful for you if you're at work and you need your support worker with you, and then suddenly they don't turn up one day. Is not helpful at all. So that would be
It's
what.
hard. It's hard because it's not really the money. It's just that the sometimes one is doing it part time while their children are at school, and then the other one can only do it while their other role is quiet.
Sure. So yeah, so I think it might be that maybe you also might need to recruit a different support worker that can just do more hours so that you're not having all those other commitments for you. So I think,
We are listening, but we can't find anyone.
Can I
Sure.
let me
We
ask
are
a question,
listening.
Courtney? Sorry. Are you just employing this person directly yourself, or are you going through an organisation
We are going through access to work for funding.
for the funding? Yeah, but it's just an individual. They don't work for a company.
Access to work is looking for a company to help as well.
That's what I was
But
going
that
to
is
suggest. Yeah.
that is still quite hard by the
Yeah.
sounds of it. It's
Sure.
difficult.
It might be, Courtney, that I do a bit of research for you and send you something after today, because I do have some more information, but I just don't have it with me at this moment. And I'll look into that a bit more for you, because I think it's going to, I think previously when someone had a similar concern, that actually I did some research then. So I think I've got something, but I will make sure that Emma has it, and then you can have that afterwards. Okay. I'll try and do
Thank
that
you.
tomorrow, but if not, it will be next week. But I'll promise I will pass that on to Emma. Okay.
Fantastic, thank you,
Sam.
Courtney.
Thank you.
Diane.
Do we have any more questions before we move on to Richard? Okay, I shall take that as you're on, Richard. Do you want the full spotlight?
No, this is fine, honestly.
This is all right, okay. I will leave you like that then.
Yeah. Hi everyone, and some of you know me, some of you don't. I am the Cerebral Palsy Programme Lead for Scope, and I'm really honoured to be invited here with my colleagues. Thank you all. So I was asked to give my employment journey, and in a lot of ways it's similar to Jenny's. I could have done better at school. Mine wasn't impairment related. Mine was personality related, I think. And I left school and I was pretty lost for a while because I didn't have any direction. And I ended up doing a youth training scheme back in the day. Certain people will remember those, Maggie Thatcher's great ideas. And I cleaned toilets in a leisure centre for a while, not glamorous, but then eventually I found a scheme through the BBC, which was a support into work for disabled people scheme, very similar to what Jenny described at her local council. And I worked at the BBC in transmissions in Warwick for a good couple of years, and that allowed me to build up a CV, build experience of the world of work, learn how to handle myself in the world of work, because nobody tells you how different it is from school or college. My dad tried, but I ignored him. And yeah, so that was really, really beneficial. Then I did a lot of agency work in call centres, technical help desks, things of that nature. And I think that for me, because my CP is very visible, it was an easier way into that conversation about, you know, what I might or might not need, even though that wasn't really a conversation back then, because I'd never heard of reasonable adjustments or adjustments. which was to my detriment because, as you know, people with CP, we do have fluctuating condition, and I didn't realise that at the time either. So I had a lot of fatigue, and I had to decide what I was doing out of work so I could perform as good as I wanted to in work. And that was the challenge for me. And I've had so many other jobs that I won't bore you with. But eventually I was a immigration officer at the University of Warwick, and I did that for 4 years. And in the evenings, I volunteered on Scope's online community, talking to mainly young men with cerebral palsy, and hoping to reach out to people with my impairment that become. I was about to become a father, and I did that for 4 years, and the role was created at Scope, and I challenged myself because all my jobs before then, apart from one, had been in a very small geographical area, because we know transport is a major problem as disabled people. And at that time where I lived, there was no such thing as ramps on buses. So my radius of work, and I didn't know what access to work was until I was 37, was really, really small. But the Scope opportunity allowed me to challenge myself and say, look, if I want to do this, I've got to branch out. And I was very scared about all the travelling and the commuting and things like that, but it was really worth it, because I've met some wonderful colleagues, and I've met wonderful people in my community. My top tips, really, I think, one that I always take with me is, when you're going to an interview, always remember that you are interviewing the company as well. You are seeing whether that company fits you as well. And if you get offered the job, if the company really, really wants you, you should be able to comfortably request visiting the offices or the premises on a morning or afternoon, whatever suits, to check out the weight of the doors, check out what state is the accessible toilet in. Is there more than one lift if the lift breaks down? What's the fire evacuation policy? Can you get in the canteen? How are you going to carry your food from the service counter to where you want to sit? And good employers, doesn't matter on their size, will be really comfortable with that. Really, really comfortable with that. And if you don't want to do that, you can go on websites like Glassdoor, which reviews employers, and Indeed also reviews employers. But I will say, with one caveat, remember when you're reading reviews that it might be an ex-employee that's a little bit upset with them. So the review might not be as genuine as it could be, but it's also very useful. And what I found useful as well, as technology improved, use Google Maps. Look at the route from your house to the office. Use Street View to see what kind of things are around your office that might be helpful to you. Download the Access a Loo app, which tells you where all the accessible toilets are on any given street. So when you're getting off the bus and you've got a 5-minute walk or push to your office, if you need to use the loo, you'll know where an Access a Loo is. Get yourself a radar key as well. Get yourself a disabled person's rail card. These are all really practical and probably beige things, but these are things that have stood me in good stead for travelling up and down the country like I do now. And also, don't be afraid. I think this comes with getting a bit older, but don't be afraid. And it's a personal thing. I'm not saying everybody should do this, but don't be afraid to talk about your impairment. And I know it's not easy for everybody, but it's really, really good if you can be open because it's an intrinsic part of you. It's part of you. And good employers, good line managers, good HR, they will want to have those conversations with you because they will want to get the best out of you. Because to recruit people costs a lot of money. So they want to get it right and they want to make sure you're happy in your job and you're succeeding in your job. But if things aren't going well, then as my colleague has mentioned before, there is support there. And I always advocate for joining a union. I would say that being an ex-shop steward, but yeah, join a union because they can support you as well. And colleagues are also allowed to go into meetings with you as support, as another pair of ears and eyes for whatever's going on. So that's a really
Right.
whistle-stop tour of my job history. If you want the longer version, you've probably all got my email. But thanks for listening.
Thank you so
Love
much,
you,
Richard. That was
Richard.
really useful to have some of those practical top tips. I might get you to write those down for us so that we can share them. Sometimes it's about the little things that make the biggest difference, isn't it?
Yeah, no
And I
problem.
just wanted to follow up before I open the floor to questions. Both of you have spoken about schemes that have allowed you to get into work. And I know through some of the other conversations we've had that in terms of within the acting world and the writing world, there are schemes for disabled actors or disabled writers. Is that something that you have a directory of or any advice on in terms of if there is any? Both of you have alluded to the fact that they don't exist anymore, and I just wondered what is around and available for people in that way.
I think there is like a disabled journalists program.
The marketing one as well, isn't there, that we've just recently done some spots on? I think it's very
And
industry specific.
although there is a done right or done, and I can get you a link. There's a website that should highlight disabled friendly employers, so that might help the people as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's really useful, Courtney.
Also,
I'll
guess
try and find it and send it to you. And
the BBC do run something similar still, but when I took advantage of it, it was more office-based kind of work. But now they're wanting more disabled people in production. There's a big scheme at the moment to get more disabled people in sports production, things like that. So the BBC do run similar things, just not as office based as mine was at the time.
Channel 4 as well, Richard. Did you see that?
Yeah.
We've had some.
Yeah.
Yes, Channel 4 do the same.
And is Scope the place that we can direct people to that might have information about that, or is it about going to your industry specific places to find out?
I think once someone signs up to us, we would just talk through what are their job goals, where do they want to work, what field is it in, what experience have you got, looking at those transferable skills, and then looking at the jobs board and actually what's on there, because it's very much run by what people's job goals are, because our colleague will speak to people in those industries and get more jobs on if people are particularly interested in a certain area. So I think it just depends what people are looking for, really, and then we would sort of link them to those places. Yeah,
that's one of the first questions we ask at your initial appointment is, what do you want to do? What industry do you think you might want to be in? And we put that on the computer so that our employment specialist then checks and says, right, we've got a lot of people that want journalism, we've got a lot of people that might want administration, and then they can make those extra links if we haven't got them there within the jobs board.
Yes, thank you.
Zoe,
can I just bring Zoe in, because she's had her hand up for a while, so I just wondered what.
No, that's fine. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, you're on mute, Zoe.
Hiya. You might not be able to help because I'm in Scotland. but I'm really struggling trying to get my head around access to work, and we don't really have the same support. So I just wondered if anyone could kind of I did apply initially for help through access to work, but there's a lot of factors that I didn't kind of account for in my initial application, like holiday pay and things like that, and I need to try and get help from a support worker again. I had somebody, but then they left because they said that they had more than one job and it was costing them too much in tax. So I'm just trying to kind of, if I reapply under a new application, trying to get the right kind of things in place. So I just, because I'm not like an employment expert, I'm just kind of trying to get some help from somewhere. And also I at the moment do permitted work, but I would like to try and at some point move on from my current role. But I'm also really nervous about that because I don't know how you explain to employers, like, at the moment I can only do like a certain number of hours, and how you can kind of explain that to employers that they don't think you're just being a wimp. I hope that makes sense. But if anyone can offer any advice, then that would be great.
Sure. So I know I'm not sure how access to work works because I think it is only England and Wales as far as I know. But I will look into it. It might be something that we research as a team. But I think in terms of like what I was saying earlier, like if there is like web pages from Scope that you're very welcome to research and look at that talk about permitted work, and
Yeah.
actually might have some things on there that are helpful to share with your employer so that you're not having to explain it every time.
Yeah.
And then go on, sorry, did you want to say anything else?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
No problem. And so, yeah, so I think it's a case of similar to Courtney's kind of question from earlier, looking at getting support workers and access to work, support for that, or if there is a different scheme in Scotland, how you go about accessing that. So that's something we'll look into for you, because obviously that's a similar to Courtney where people have other commitments with family members that they need to pick up from school and things like that. But also, your support is doing two jobs. So yeah, definitely we'll look into that for you.
Zoe,
Okay.
there is a website, disabilityscot.org.uk, and on there it's got a list of local authorities and links to directories of what support you can get within.
Okay. Thanks a
So
lot.
yeah, let me put it in chat and then you can have it.
And if we took this question slightly wider, if you don't mind, Zoe,
Yeah.
in terms of any advice around how you move on from a job that's permitted hours and finding another job that would also suit that bill, if you've got any tips on that.
So I think it will depend on the job role, but also generally it's good to have conversations with benefits advisors if you're like, for example, if it's in the ESA, you can work a certain amount of hours, but actually it will hopefully balance out depending on how much money you're coming in. And
I'm
then
the support group at the moment, so obviously if I go above like 16 hours, then I'll lose that.
sure. So that's why I think it's important to get some benefits advice. And unfortunately, I'm not a benefits advisor, but somehow it kind of balances out depending on what's coming in. But as you said, having those conversations, because they can, if you do go into work, hopefully would cover you until you get your first wage, because sometimes people won't have any money coming in until they might have to work a month before they get that money. So you don't want to be caught short. So I think it's about having those kind of conversations as well.
Yeah.
It's worth just thinking that if you do come off of ESA, stop using your permitted work, you will go into universal credit.
Yeah.
So that's definitely get advice before you do that, because it's a lot different.
Yeah.
The amount, and even if you decided it's right for you, you need some advice of when in the month it's going to be right to do it, because it looks at what's come in, and you might end up with 2 months without any wage or benefit if you just pick it at the wrong time of the month. So
Yeah,
do definitely get some advice from us.
It sounds really selfish, but I don't really want to lose my ESA.
No.
So
Not selfish at all. It's just protecting you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fabulous, thank you, Zoe. And I think that Jenny just popped that organisation in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
Also, I just did see Courtney had asked when Access to Work, I think it was 1994, but when it was founded, it did change a little bit about 2012 when it's administered by an external organisation now, not the DWP as it used to be. But yeah, 94 goes back to.
They're very good at hiding it, because I didn't find out about it till I was 37.
No, it's really bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as Dean will know, if you work for
Richard,
DWP,
actually.
Sorry?
It's this thing, I was 37 when I found about Access to Work as well. And that's why I'm very keen on promoting it, because I think everyone needs to know.
Absolutely right.
I think I was just going to say, if Dean will back me up on this one, if you worked for the DWP, you're not allowed to get it, because they don't pay
There's a different
to
process.
their own staff.
So
they use it through their own, it comes out of their own budget, so then it gets to be like, I'm not paying for that.
Yes, it is, and it's very
very
bad. DWP for it's an employer, and it promotes employment, through Job Centre Plus. But when it comes to internally, it's a totally different story, and that just adds to the anxiety.
It does.
And it it just doesn't help. I've known several people who for different reasons, and say this help's available, but we don't get this. It's different for us, and it's true. It is different. It's different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to hear that experience. I've had some of my customers who've had good experiences where they have got the right support. So I wonder if it is to do with departments and managers and things, but hopefully they've changed things. I don't know, but I'm sorry to hear that experience.
I just come back to Courtney. I had a question. I hope I'm asking questions that are representative to things that have come up for us when people have talked to us. But the whole question around knowing what you need that will help you, because often people say that they have conversations with employers, and then the onus either is on them to know what it is that they need, and if they don't know what's around that could help, what sort of advice could you give, or what sorts of things could people be doing in order to help work out what would best help them, if that wasn't too much of a convoluted question?
No. I think, that's actually something that I talk about quite a lot. It's something that comes up a lot, because I think the question is always like, what do you need? What do you need? And it's a nice question, but it's not a helpful question. Because actually often, even myself, when I was asked, I was like, I don't know. But I think what I do with my customers is I talk through their day-to-day things that they're doing at work, and then we look at where the challenges are. What is most challenging? Is it the admin side of things? Because I've got some things in place for myself where I've got like assistive technology that helps me to do my admin. Or is it, are you more tired in the afternoons? Do you need more wellbeing breaks? Because these things don't necessarily have a cost. You know, it's free to have a wellbeing break. It doesn't cost an employer anything. So I think it's looking at people's individual circumstances, but I think start making a list of those things. If you know there's particular things that you struggle with already, then you can add those to a list. And I think what's really helpful with that is once you've started, if you don't know before you've started a job, in your first couple of weeks when you're doing your induction, you're starting to settle in, start making a note of those things, because then you can use that list actually as part of your access to work if you do want to go down that route. So access to work is more specialist support. So employers actually should be providing general things like a laptop, a keyboard, all those things that everybody's entitled to, but access to work is additional. So like assistive technology, like I use Dragon, which is like a speech to text software. So, and obviously that is an additional cost. So it's really, really important, if there are things that people need, to try and apply to access to work before you get your start date, because there's a massive delay if you don't. They fast track your application if you apply
Yeah,
before you start. So I thought it's helpful to share that too.
So can you just say that again, just so that we're clear? So what you, and please excuse me if I'm sort of, so you would apply for the job, get the job, ask for a start date, and at that point apply to access to work of the things you already know that you, and would you have needed to have a conversation with your employer to tell them that you're going to do that?
Not necessarily.
You do need a name. You do need a contact name.
They will find out that you have applied. Sorry, say that again, Jenny.
You do have to have a contact name with your employer.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah, so you don't need to have a conversation before you apply, but actually they will check in with your work to make sure that you actually work there, because you could just be asking for things and you could be anybody. So you do need to have a contact person. So that will be someone in HR or your manager, so that they can actually look into that for you and just make sure, you know, they just do a quick check to make sure that you work there. So yeah.
And
what I usually do,
sorry,
Emma, what I found useful is when you do have that induction, or they do give you that tour that I mentioned in my little section, just mention to them about access to work and how it assists the employer. And that way they say, oh, okay, I'll be your point of contact. So as soon as you get your start date, you've got your point of contact.
And can you add things to your application? So
yeah,
like talking. So what you're advising is to apply before you've started the job, but equally you might find that things are different and more challenging once you've started. Can you add to that application?
Yeah. So generally, hopefully if it's fast tracked, you might hear back within a couple of weeks. So you might have already started in your job role and know a bit more about what you're going to be doing. So you can put some basic things that you might need, for example, if you were dyslexic and you need assistive tech, things like that, on your referral. And then as you start your job, you might think, oh, actually, I might need a chair that's a bit different to support my back a bit more, or something like that, depending on what people's conditions are. So you can start making that list. And then when your assessor, your caseworker talks through the kind of things you do as your job, you can sort of have more things prepared for that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Fabulous.